I'm a former captain with the Paris Fire Department. On April 29th of 2015, I was going through my annual physical agility test. It was just a test we had to go through every year just to kind of show that we're still fit enough to do our job. One of the things I tried to do was, going through this, I tried to push the guys to be the best that they could be physically. We started our test about 9:30. Let's say it was April 29th, 2015. About 9:30 in the morning, it was my time to go through and do my test. We go through just the basic things you do as a firefighter. You know, we're climbing ladders, we're pulling hoses, we're going up and down stairs, dragging dummies. I mean, it's a multitude of different things that you actually do on the job.
Kind of like an obstacle a little bit.
Yeah, it's almost like an obstacle course. If anybody has seen the combat challenge that they have on TV, it's very similar to that, but it's probably a little bit longer, and it's not a big race. You do it individually. But I was going through, and that particular year, it had been said that whoever gets the fastest time gets a shift off with pay. So I wanted to prove that I could do it faster than anybody else there. I was 39 at the time, and honestly in the best shape of my life. I went through the test, and I did finish it. What are the odds? I did finish it in the fastest time, but that came at a cost. I mentally had got myself in a situation where I was like, you know what? I'll pass out before I'll die. And I pushed myself to that extent. And for those of you who don't know, that is incorrect. You will die. I hit the finish line and I fell over. The guys come to check on me and found that I wasn't breathing, and they could not find a heartbeat. They began CPR and put an AED on me, and it was advising them to shock me. I was in ventricular fibrillation, which is basically no heartbeat. Your heart's just sitting there vibrating. But it was almost, you hear people say you were having an out-of-body experience. That's the way I felt, because I was aware of what was going on around me. I just didn't feel anything, and it was kind of hazy. And I just remember one of the last memories I had was I could hear the AED charging up, and I thought, man, this is gonna hurt. Mm-hmm. And I don't really remember anything after that. And I had no concept of time as this was all going on, because I go out. Well, in the process of me being out, the next thing I have in my mind, and like I say, I have no idea how long that I've been out, is I'm in a dark, echoey room. And that's all I have in my head is I'm in darkness, and I feel lost. I'm like, I can tell there's no one around. I'm somewhere that I'm lost, and I start almost kind of panicking.
You're crawling around.
And so I started going to some of my fire department training, and I start crawling around trying to find a wall, and I can't. So I get up and start clapping my hands, try to hear an echo of, where is a wall, where is a door? I got to get out of this darkness. And I start, getting anxious, and I get to the point where I just spread my arms out and start just swinging my arms and spinning around and walking, trying to find my way out of this room. And in amongst all of this, I'm spinning around, trying to figure out where I am, what's going on. And I actually got to hear God whisper in my ear. I felt his breath on my face. He told me, he said, Shon, it's not your time. And I woke up to her leaning over me in the bed saying, do you know who I am? Do you recognize me? Who am I? And I knew at that time that God had pulled me out of that, and it wasn't my time. And I got to hear that straight from him. I got to not only hear, but feel his breath.
One of the doctors were trying to get him extubated and that means like take him off the ventilator. And because he was so young, and the longer you're on there, the worse your outcome. And we didn't know what kind of function he had or how long he went without oxygen or anything, because it all happened in the field. And then my dad, when it happened to him, when he woke up, he never knew who I was after that. And he had a lot of brain damage. And so I had taken care of him for several years. And so I told the doctors, they were like, "Are you ready?" I was like, "Can y'all give me just a minute?" And they were like, "Yeah." And so I just started walking in the hospital. And by this time, it's in the evening, and everything had happened in the morning. And I was just praying. I was like, and at that time, I just really was just weeping. And I found a hall, just a random hall that had a chair at the end of it. And I walked down that hall, and I just put my face to the ground. And I'm just begging God to save him, and to, when he woke up, for him to know. And I remember, and I'm just weeping and I'm crying. And when they say the peace of God is like nothing else, I swear it is. And all of a sudden I felt this rush, and I heard God just say, he just whispered, "I love him more than you do." And immediately I just had this peace. And I remember standing up and washing my face, and I walked in the room, and his mother and his grandmother was there, and the doctors and the nurse, and they were like, "Y'all know this isn't pretty." I'm like, "Yeah, I know." And they were like, "Are you ready?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm ready." And they extubated him, and that's what he remembers now, is I sat down on the bed, and I just got right in his face. I said, "Look at me." And he was all disoriented, and he had no idea where he was. I said, "Do you know who I am?" He was just out of it. And I was like, "Shon, look at me." And he looked at me. I said, "Do you know who I am?" And he whispered, "Amanda." And I said, "Talk to me." And after that, they care flighted us to Dallas the next day, and they never could find out what happened. I mean, we ran every single test in the world.
You didn't have a heart attack. I had no blockage.
Everybody thought it was a heart attack, and it wasn't. And we ended up getting connected to like the most prestigious hospital, private doctor. It was amazing. And he was a young doctor, and Shon's whole organs, everything had started to shut down for a while. And so they ended up having to do a defibrillator on him, and he did not like that. He fought that.
While I was there in the hospital, just going through my mind of thinking, why did this happen? How did this happen? Why did this happen? And, I had a few days into the hospital, because I was in the hospital a little over a week. I started having some really dark days, and some days that I had questioned. And randomly, out of nowhere, I learned the lesson of how you say, God can talk to you, or to people, and through people. Well, he had already spoken to me. And then he turned around and showed me how he could speak through someone to me. And randomly, one of the guys I work with sent me a scripture that put me back where I needed to be. And, a scripture everybody's heard their whole life, but really sometimes scripture doesn't give you a full meaning until it does. And he sent me Joshua 1:9. And that has resonated with me so much since then, to the point that I even had it tattooed on my body as a remembrance of that day, and how once again within 1 week God spoke directly to me. And even with that, I'm not gonna lie and say I still didn't have further dark days. And I think that the devil had realized that how I'd had that closeness with God, and that where my relationship was starting to head, because I hadn't been the best person. I hadn't been the Christian that I should be. And this was definitely, knowing that God loved me that much, put me on the path to show him how much I love him. But I'm not gonna say the devil didn't fight me, and I had dark days of, the first question I had is, why did I see darkness? And I would sit days and just feel lost. And it took one Sunday at church, and I know the sermon was meant for me, because for the church we were going to at the time, the pastor was was referring to Jesus as teacher. And it hit me like a ton of lead. I was like, that's it. That's it. When you're a kid and you're in school and you're being loud and you're being rambunctious and you're not paying attention to what's going on around you, what does the teacher do to make you be quiet and listen? She turns the lights on. And that's all God did. He turned the lights out, said, listen to me. I've got something important you need to hear. And that's the way I look at the darkness from there. Is it's just God getting my attention, saying, son, you need to listen to me because I've got something to tell you. And I haven't had that darkness feeling since then.
It was definitely just an amazing, scary experience to go through it and just to see how God just aligned it. I mean, a week before he was working out our land all by himself. If he had been out there, he wouldn't have made it. And it was just like, and after that I was terrified. And I remember God, because as I couldn't get a hold of him, I was terrified, and I would sleep right on him and just listen to his heart. And I remember God saying one day, he was like, I'm everywhere and you are not. And that was like, every time that fear would grip me, he would just remind me that he is everywhere and I'm not. I didn't save him, and God did. And God aligned it. And we weren't, plugged in like we needed to be. We weren't these perfect people that were going through life and doing what we should. And he still showed up without even asking. He was there. And it was just like, wow, And so sometimes we have to go back and remind ourselves, if he can pull us through that, he can pull us through anything, no matter what. And that was the beginning of our marriage. And it was the beginning of our foundation in our relationship. And it totally made us grow through and took us down to nothing. And we just started building. And
Definitely
building
equips you, something like that definitely equips you to have a naked marriage.
Oh yeah, we do. We are totally transparent because he did go through some really dark days. And that's a whole nother story in that one, and how God showed up there too. Thank you guys for listening to it.
Thank you.
We love you all.